All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Let's turn our attention right now to Israel as a near miss this morning by a Houthi missile landing very closely to a major international airport in Tel Aviv. And now more questions arise about the Israeli and U.S. air defense system that did miss this ballistic missile. A post from the New York Post talking about this, that they failed to stop the ballistic missile at this airport, injuring 6 people. And you can see some of these images that we are gathering of this incident. As of course, that launched by the Iranian-backed rebels in Yemen briefly halted flights and commuter traffic at Israel's main international airport on Sunday after its impact on open ground within the perimeter left a plume of smoke and caused panic among passengers. The Israeli army confirmed that this was the first time a missile struck the airport grounds since the war began. And you can just see also some of the commotion inside of the airport. And you can only imagine what's going through these people's minds as they're hearing this news. All right, let's bring into the conversation right now senior research analyst at the FDD, friend of the program, Joe Truzman. Joe, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Obviously, this incident, we're going to discuss it. What do you make of what happened, and how did the Israeli and U.S. air defense system miss this?
Well, always a pleasure to be on the program. Yeah, you said it. The air defenses supplied by the U.S. and, of course, the Israeli missile defense system did miss this ballistic missile. But I think I don't want people to overlook the fact that there have been dozens of ballistic missiles and drones, by the way, fired at Israel following the October 7th, 2023 Hamas-led massacre in southern Israel. Right, it was just weeks after that the Houthis in Yemen joined the fight, essentially. So they've been firing drones, they've been firing ballistic missiles for on and off for about a year and a half now. So and most of these drones and ballistic missiles have been intercepted, so which is good. However, as we saw earlier today, there was a ballistic missile that was apparently missed, and it struck right outside, or at least on the grounds of Ben Gurion Airport. Thankfully, there weren't significant casualties. Nevertheless, it shows that, or at least it demonstrates this attack, that the Houthis are able to cause significant damage, especially at sensitive sites like Ben Gurion Airport. So we just have to remember that these missile defense systems, whether they're Israeli, whether they're American, they aren't 100%. They're not foolproof, all right? They may have an interception rate of 90% or more, but some of these are going to get through, and we saw it today. And of course, the Houthis are going to capitalize on this situation, on this event, when one of their ballistic missiles gets through the system, the air defense system. Of course, they're going to promote it and exaggerate and say things about their abilities or the capabilities. But yeah, so this is going to happen. But again, let's not forget that there have been many more missiles that have been intercepted by these defense systems.
Yeah, we have noted that. I know the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, has noted the success rate of shooting down some of these missiles. But you also made a good point about this leading to other questions from your partner over the FDD, Jonathan Shanzer, talking about this. Will the Houthis increase the attacks after the taste of success? Will the Israelis respond? Of course, this was a near miss, but it necessitates a serious response. He goes on to say the Houthis say it was a missile capable of evading radar. That claim yet unproven. Of course, it failed to shoot that down. Let's get into that point about this, the fact that they're saying it was able to evade radar. Is that in any way part of the truth? Are they capable of that, or is that smoke and mirrors again?
I suspect it's, like you said, smoke and mirrors. The Houthis tend to exaggerate, especially when they have a successful strike, right? Like, for example, this isn't the first time that they've said that their so-called supersonic ballistic missile or hypersonic ballistic missile was able to evade, Israeli missile defense systems or U.S. missile defense systems. It's not the first time. They've said it before. But the problem is when they tend to say things, right, in these statements, but they rarely back it up with evidence, all right? That's the problem, at least for as coming from an analyst's point of view. That's important. This is a key piece of information. We need evidence showing or demonstrating that that it evades radar or it evades missile defense systems. Yes, we already understand that Israeli and American missile defense systems don't always hit their target, but they do have a high rate of accuracy. So some of these are going to get through. Some of these missiles are going to get through. So I think a lot right now, and I said it before, what we're going to hear from the Houthis is a lot of exaggeration. They're going to promote their success, all right, their successful strike. Even though it hit the grounds of Ben Gurion Airport, thankfully it didn't hit an airplane, it didn't hit one of the main buildings. Nevertheless, they're going to tout this success, right? We're going to be hearing about it for a while. Are they going to increase their attacks? I don't know. I can't say for sure. But if we look at history, right? For example, the Houthis fired a drone, I believe it was sometime last year, and it successfully hit a building in Tel Aviv to kill the person. I didn't notice, at least I didn't observe an increase in attacks after that, all right? So, which is good news. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see some of the same here, all right? But we definitely will see a lot of propaganda from the Houthis and their allies about this missile that struck the grounds of Ben Gurion Airport.
Yeah, let's get into the response, because an attack like this, you can see them have some success in doing it. And they might want to replicate it like you mentioned. How quickly does Israel need to respond to potentially thwart any of those efforts by the Houthis?
Right. So we've already saw observed some signaling by the Israelis, right? I believe even last night or just a few hours after it happened, Israel's defense minister, he made a statement saying that, whoever hits Israel, whoever attacks Israel, they will be attacked as well. So the defense minister was effectively saying that they were going to respond to the Houthis. And I'm not surprised. I completely understand why they would, and I'm not surprised if they would. So nevertheless, now it can, looking at history or historically, when the Israelis have responded to Houthi attacks and gone all the way to Yemen to carry out strikes, usually it's been within a week or two. So I don't see why it would change now. I think the most important part here, if the Israelis do respond against the Houthis, which I expect they will, what are they going to attack? All right. Why do I say this? Well, it's because the U.S. has already been, as we know, for weeks now, the U.S. has been striking military targets belonging to the Houthis in Yemen. So I think the strategy here, at least by Israel, for the Israelis, is they want to make the Houthis hurt. All right. They want the Houthis to hurt following this strike. But what are they going to hit? I think targets such as the Houthis' leadership may be a possible target. However, the Houthis' leadership, of course, they've been in hiding for the last weeks. Why? Well, because of the U.S. military strike. So that complicates efforts. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Israelis are going to go after. All right, just because the United States has already hit quite a few targets in Yemen. So we don't know yet. But again, something to observe and watch. But I completely expect for the Israelis to respond sooner rather than later against the Houthis.
And it's a good point to point out what we saw with President Trump and this administration versus what we saw with the last administration in terms of the Houthi rebels. I also want to put up a post from Netanyahu talking about President Trump, talking about this statement, saying the attacks by the Houthis emanate from Iran. Israel will respond to the Houthi attack against our main airport and at a time and place of our choosing to their Iranian terror masters. In terms of this, I know it's missed by the Israel and U.S. Defense Forces. How much in coordination will the U.S. be in with Israel to see this as a requisite response?
Oh, yeah. I completely expect there will be a close cooperation there, just simply because we know that the U.S. military is already operating over Yemen. All right. So they need to coordinate the attack. I'm not saying that they're going to both attack at the same time, but there's definitely going to be coordination. Again, we know that Israel and the United States are very close partners, especially with the military. So I expect this, but I'm glad you did bring up the Iran part of this, because it is it's a big part of this issue here. Now we've seen it many times, not only with the Houthis, but of course with Hamas, other Palestinian armed groups, Hezbollah in Lebanon. They strike or they carry out an attack against Israel. Israel responds, right? But we have to remember a lot of these groups, they are armed, they're supported by Iran, and it seems that Iran gets away with a lot of this, right? So President Trump alluded. He just actually, I think he made a statement of deterrence against Iran, and I'm glad he said it because at the end of the day, I think it's Iran that's behind most of what's happening right now in the Middle East, specifically with the Houthis and what's happening in Gaza and Israel. So I think it may be time for a change in strategy. I understand why Israel or the United States would attack these proxy organizations or these groups backed by Iran. But I think it's time for the main player behind these groups to also start to feel some of the heat, because again, Tehran, they support these organizations significantly. So I think Iran needs to be called out here, and I'm glad President Trump did that.
Yeah, we're seeing some of those potential deterrences against the Houthis, against Iran in terms of sanctions, in terms of oil as well. So we'll see if that has any impact. Joe, anything else you're keeping an eye on? Because this was a big development day in terms of this ballistic missile getting through a near miss at an international airport in Tel Aviv. Anything else you're keeping an eye on in the region?
Right. Well, there's always something going on, right? Yeah. Of course, with the Houthis. Again, we talked a little bit about Gaza. Thankfully, things in Lebanon with Hezbollah aren't too crazy right now. But also, the Syrian arena is quite interesting. I think with the Druze minority being coming under attack by the Syrian government and the Israelis coming to support the Druze. So that may be a front, all right, that may open up. All right, we've seen already some attacks by the Israelis against the Syrian government. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on, and I think you all should too. Hopefully, it won't get out of hand, it won't get out of control. But yeah, there's a lot of fronts, a lot of hotspots in the Middle East right now. Definitely keeping me busy.
All right, definitely, and we appreciate your insight, your perspective here on this. Joe Truzman on a Sunday. Thanks again for joining us here on Live Now.